Okay, I'm going to try something experimental today. I'm going to read from the book, The Good Book, but in a more mellow, chilled out way. Let's see how the Founding Fathers sound with reggae, Rasta, in the background. Okay. How are you today? Nice spring day. SCOD History of Philosophy, Modern Theories, Enlightenment. Summary. The Enlightenment, neoclassical period, was about classicism. It included Greek and Roman revival styles, and also new styles, using classical orders and geometries. Renaissance Palladian architecture led to neoclassical, Baroque, Rococo, and Empire styles. English, Georgian, and French Napoleonic. Descartes, 1596 to 1650. Science and Geometry, grids. 1600s, Buccaneers and Musketeers. Empiricist philosophers include Locke, Berkeley, Hobbes, and Hume, to name a few. Sir Christopher Wren, the London architect, rebuilt after the fire of 1666. Yes, the sign of the beast. Newton, 1642 to 1727. Physical laws of science. Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels, 1726, and A Modest Proposal, the satire about classes. And The Rich Eating the Poor, I believe. Diderot's Encyclopedias, 1713 to 1784. Piranesi, 1720 to 1778, epic fantasy artist. Immanuel Kant, Transcendental Philosophy. And towards the end of the Enlightenment era was the American Revolution, 1775 to 1783. The American Revolution, War for Independence from England, 1775 to 1783 are the dates that I list here. European Philosophers of Liberty, Boston Massacre, Stamp Act, Tea Party, Colonial War, George Washington, Founding Fathers, Federalism. Some European philosophers that directly influenced American concepts of liberty were John Locke, David Hume, Adam Smith, and Thomas Paine. John Locke stated there was a moral imperative for people to rebel when their representatives abuse power, which was only allowed or granted by people because people were naturally free. Capitalist Adam Smith was inspired by Hume, yet Hume had an ethical common sense to his skeptical writings that Thomas Paine may have been inspired by when he wrote Our Common Sense Revolutionary Pamphlet. David Hume was a Scottish empirical philosopher and historian, 1711-1776. David Hume died in 1776, the year of the American Declaration of Independence. David Hume had a very Epicurean psychology, as he believed we are more influenced by our feelings, sentiments, and emotions more than objective reason. If we can embrace that fact, we can be stoically calmer and reasonably happy. Trying to be over-rational is a type of madness. Balance. Harmony. We are a continuum of perception bundles. Unity of behavior is not the same as perfect rational, or rationality, or rationale, because being good or reasonable means experiencing patterns of feeling happy and practicing habits that bring happiness. Hume believed in being social and happy in society. In political economics, Hume had a quality theory of money and a quality theory of politics embracing intellectual wit, social sympathy, and respect, or at least manners. Hume's essay, Balance of Trade, was an early economic theory model. Jefferson and others interpreted Hume's political emphasis on law to be notoriously like Hobbes with the Leviathan. Hume believed in some distribution of property, but perfect equality would deny pursuits in thrift, industry, or luxury. Perfect equality is impossible, but perhaps we can have a fairer, slightly more equal system. Adam Smith was a Scottish economist, 1723 to 1790. Social philosopher and author, Adam Smith studied at the University of Glasgow and Oxford, then lectured at Edinburgh, leading him to collaborate with David Hume. Adam Smith wrote The Theory of Moral Sentiments and An Inquiry into Nature and the Causes of the Wealth of Nations, 1776. Usually abbreviated as The Wealth of Nations. As a moral philosopher, Adam Smith was a pioneer of political economics and classical liberal free market economic theory. Adam Smith developed division of labor and a rationality for capitalist self-interest and competition, which can lead to economic prosperity for a period of time for a few plutocrats. Mercantilism, or state trade, began to decline during the Industrial Revolution as merchants and monarchs embraced free trade, laissez-faire economics, in a utopia where monopolies and plutocracies did not exist. Like maybe a small, isolated village for a period of time, free market capitalism could work for the majority, in much the same way communism did for Jesus. Adam Smith seems to not have considered the effects of companies upon democracy, perhaps due to the limited powers of corporations during the 1700s, although more research is needed on that. Smith was controversial in his own day, and his writings were morally satirized by Tory writers in the tradition of William Hogarth and Jonathan Swift. Adam Smith, the father of capitalism, thought that there should be a way to take care of the poor, because capital and labor were intertwined. Smith and Paine were free market supporters, but if they saw the predatory capitalism that exists today, would they consider it more powerful than the monarchies they fought against? Thomas Paine, 1737 to 1809. He was born in England, and he was a political activist, philosopher, and later an American and French revolutionary. One of our founding fathers of the United States, Thomas Paine authored two of the most influential pamphlets at the start of the American Revolution. In fact, possibly the most influential pamphlets. And that's saying a lot, since there's not much other evidence as to what the propaganda was at the time. Paine inspired American rebels to declare independence from Britain. His ethics of human rights were more enlightened than Thomas Jefferson regarding slavery, economics, and democracy, and certainly the others. Jefferson called Paine a corset maker by trade, a journalist by profession, and a propagandist by inclination. Paine supported abolition, welfare for the poor, and included them as the foundation of democracy. Paine migrated to the British American colonies in 1774 with the aid of Benjamin Franklin, arriving just in time to participate in the American Revolution. Every American rebel must have read or heard a reading of Paine's powerful popular pamphlet, Common Sense, 1776. Paine expressed the existing spirit of rebellious demand for independence from Great Britain and a right to self-rule. During the Revolutionary War that followed, Paine wrote the American Crisis pamphlet series. In the 1790s, Paine moved to France to be part of the next revolution. Paine wrote The Rights of Man in 1791 as a liberal in the French Revolution, supporting the French Rebellion. Paine's attacks on conservative writer Edmund Burke led to a trial and conviction in absence for the crime of seditious libel. Despite not speaking French and being wanted for crimes, Paine was elected to the French National Convention. The Girondists regarded him as an ally, and so Montagnards, I can't pronounce that, like Robespierre, called him an enemy. Those are French political parties at the time, which I don't know that much about. Paine was heavily attacked by satirical propaganda. In 1793, Paine was arrested. While in prison, Paine worked on The Age of Reason. James Monroe used his diplomatic connections to get Paine released the next year. Thomas Paine published Agrarian Justice in 1797 to discuss the origins of property and introduce the concept of a guaranteed minimum income, or another word for that nowadays is a universal living wage, or universal income. Okay, Paine returned to America, where he died infamous for his ridicule of religion in 1809. Sad, but true. John Adams said, "Without Paine, the sword of Washington would have been raised in vain." That actually rhymes. Yet, John Adams thought Paine was a dangerous person and fought with him, because democracy was used in a pejorative sense, until Paine began reusing democracy like a pre-Socratic Greek commoner, desperate for liberty in a time of brutish tyranny. John Adams was an American rebel who served as the second president of the USA, 1797 to 1801. Adams was a lawyer, diplomat, statesman, politician, and as a founding father of the American Revolution movement. John collaborated with his cousin Samuel Adams, who the beer is named after, which I enjoy. After the Boston Massacre, John Adams provided an unpopular legal defense of the accused British soldiers in the face of severe local anti-British sentiment, and driven by his devotion to the right to defense counsel. Adams was a Massachusetts delegate to the Continental Congress. John Adams wrote Thoughts on Government and assisted Thomas Jefferson in drafting the Declaration of Independence in 1776. As a diplomat in Europe, he acquired vital government loans from Amsterdam bankers. As president, John Adams encountered fierce criticism from Jeffersonian Republicans as well as the dominant faction in his own Federalist Party, led by his rival Alexander Hamilton. And there's been some recent musical. Being strong on military defense, Adams built up the American Navy. John Adams was the father of John Quincy Adams, the sixth president of the United States. He died on the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence and the same day as Jefferson. And then I go on to talk about James Madison, Hamilton, John Hay, who I've enjoyed visiting his estate in New Hampshire on Lake Sunapee, and George Washington, Nathaniel Greene, Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and a host of others. So tune in next time for more talks and thoughts about the Enlightenment, and yeah, we'll pick up there, and also the modern history as we know it, with focus on the United States of America.